Hi everybody, my name is Tim Campbell and I'm going to be doing some reviews on GMRS radios because that's my new love, and I've kind of dove into it wholeheartedly. My background a little bit, I was in the Marine Corps. I was a comm nav avionics technician, so I was always into radios and things like that. Also goes back to high school, using CB radios around town. GMRS, way better. Wish we had it when I was in high school. We could have found each other from greater distances, especially with the use of repeaters, because that was all way back before cell phones. So let's go ahead and get into my new love, which I just got yesterday, and that is the Midland MXT500. I've had the MXT400 for a while, and I installed an MXT275 in the Camaro, and I use it as kind of a mobile. We'll take it on the road with us. So I'll be reviewing those later, but for now I just want to talk about the MXT500 and all the features. And from what I understand, Midland, when they first came out with the 500, they sent it out for people to review, and there were some features on there, some things they didn't like. And from what I can see, I believe that Midland may have been listening, because some of the things that they were complaining about and that I actually saw in videos, they've changed, and changed for the better. And you'll see that, and that's when it comes to privacy codes or setting tones for repeaters. And I'll cover all that when we are looking at the radio. Let's take a look at the radio real quick. Here it is in all its glory. As you can see, I'm on a repeater channel right now. Let's go back down and look at some normal channels. They look like that when you get up into the repeater channels. Of course, I have some programmed, but normally it would just like RP19. Pretty simple on the face. The on and off button is the volume button on the left side, so you just turn it off. Hold that. Off. We'll turn it back on. Welcome. I feel welcome. So this is a real simple radio to operate. I guess if you're one of the really deep into it type of GMRS guys, this might not interest you, but for guys like me just getting into it, this is a step up from the 115 and the 275 and those type. So we're going to get into the programming of this a little bit. Real simple. They've really done a great job. So let's get into that. To get into the menu, of course, you would press menu, because you can do all the programming right here from the front panel. If I hit menu, it says 1, privacy. It's kind of nice when you're going through the setup instructions from Midland, they'll actually tell you which setting to be on, so that number is pretty important. Oh, let's get back in there. Privacy, that's one of the big things. Let's get into the privacy codes. I can go in there, TRP, off. Let's turn it. TSQ is CTSS codes, DCS or off. So we are going to set it up for CTSS. Now, the thing that people were complaining about that you can see here is Midland, using this book, you have to look at this tiny little chart, and of course you're not going to see it on there, and I had to print it out for the 275, but they have the frequencies that match to a code. And I saw a video where they were programming this earlier, and it actually was using the code. And that is kind of a pain, you know, I have to look at a chart. But when I received this one, I was happy to see where it actually had the frequencies right there, so you're not referencing a chart when you're trying to set up privacy codes or when you're trying to connect the repeater. Extremely smart of them to do this, because this is the way the MXT400 is. And I really, really like that, as opposed to using the chart and the codes when I have to program the 275. So let's go back in here. Number 1 is privacy. Power, high. I'm on a repeater channel, so it's a high power. NB, that is narrow band. I like wide band, but if you're having a problem with bleed over from other frequencies, you can always turn narrow band on. But this has wide band capabilities. I just learned that the 400 also has wideband capability. So turn narrowband off and you're automatically in wideband mode. Talk, comp, I haven't messed with those settings yet. Mute is off. The time that you're transmitting, that way you won't burn up your radio. automatic power off. I set it for 60 minutes. I actually left my 400 on for 4 or 5 days when I was on a trip. Came back and it weakened my battery pretty good. So I make sure I turn the automatic power on or power off setting there when on these radios now. Squelch, you can set the squelch levels. I believe it's 1 through 5, I believe are the squelch levels. The color. Anytime you want to change something, you just hit the channel change and you can scroll through the different settings. Purple, clear, red, green. It comes with a blue on, so we'll leave it on blue. But so that's real simple to operate. Enter by pressing the button and then scroll through your settings. The lamp, here's where you can set the brightness. You go dimmer, brighter. Just hit enter whenever you get to whatever brightness you want. You can see we're incrementing on the left here as well. And that's important when you're looking at the instructions that indicate or that they use that in order to help you through. Oops, there we go. Get back in. Repeater on. If you don't want the repeater channels, especially when you're scanning, then you can turn the repeater channels off. I love repeaters. That has been a game changer for using this radio. When we first started using them, we were just doing simplex, radio to radio, and GMRS has great range as far as that's concerned. Of course, it varies by terrain and how many features and mountains and buildings. But once I discovered repeaters and got permission to use the repeater down here in Warrenton and Alexandria, Virginia, and out in Front Royal, Blue Mountain here in Virginia, that was a game changer. So my wife, she works in Manassas. I work in Fairfax. So as long as I can hit that Warrenton repeater, which is it must be in a great spot because it reaches way out there, we can still talk to each other in our cars for anywhere in Northern Virginia that we can reach that repeater, which, like I say, has great range. So it's kind of nice. My wife, she has her license now, so we can just chat. We're leaving work for work and coming home about the same time. So we like to chat, and this really, like I say, the repeaters were a game changer and really extending out for like 20, 30 miles that we can talk to each other. So love repeaters. So we have the repeaters on. The call, I don't like the beeping, so I turn that off. USB. Now, if we want to program this MXT500 with a computer using the USB port, over here on the right side, just below the channel selector, then you have to turn this on. So we're going to turn it on because we're going to do that. Even when it's in the off position, there's still power applied, so you can charge your cell phone. It's a USB-C high-speed charger, so you can do all that good stuff with that. Did I turn it on? Okay, USB is on now. So I want to show you guys how to program. What did I do with the USB-C cable? I had one. Did we ever get it out of the box? Oh, here it is. Okay, we're good. We're back. Okay, it's just a simple USB-C to just a regular USB, and I have the other end plugged into my computer. So I'm going to plug it in right to the front. Nice and simple. And I've already programmed this one, so when you look at it, you're going to see Alexandria's repeater, COM1's out in Front Royal, Virginia. This is the Warrenton repeater that my wife and I like to use. Normally this would say RP22, but I've already got this one programmed. And the way you can program, you can change all these things. It's great. If you go to the computer, you got to go download the MXT500 software. And I'll show you how to get to that right now. Go to the Midland website, go to Products, Micro Mobile, and that's going to bring you to this page. Now it's got all the brand new features. I have the MXT400, I've got a 275, and I also have the 500. Now, to get to the software, you click on the radio as if you're going to buy it, which I highly recommend, and go to, it says MXT500 Programming. There's a program guide, but you want to go to Setup. Click on Setup, and it's going to ask you to download the MXT500 Setup. So go ahead and download that. and install that on your computer, nice and safe. I'm a cyber guy, so I wouldn't steer you wrong. So, I'm always leery about loading software on my stuff. This, perfectly safe, no issues. So go ahead and download that, and what it looks like when it comes up is right here. It's a real simple program, and before I started doing the programs, I went to Program, Read from Radio, and what that did was that downloaded the default from the radio, and it had the 7 FRS channels plus the channel 15 through 22, which are the GMRS channels, and it also had the repeater channels in there. So if you want to make a change to any channel on here, you can just double click on it. Here's the menu that comes up. It already has the frequencies in here, so you can change whatever name you want. You can put test, you can put Warrington, which is what I did. You can also change the steps, which I left it at 12.5K. I don't mess with that, although my MXT500 did have this set at 25K. Channel spacing. This is where you can set it for wideband or narrowband. 12.5 is narrowband. That prevents interference, but it also, from the tests that I've seen done on other YouTube videos, then what that does is sometimes it'll reduce your distance that you can receive. And it also, I guess the quality, I was talking to somebody and he was saying how tinny it sounded, and I believe that was because I was in narrowband. Put it out the wideband, you get a lot better quality and a little more distance. So, channel spacing, I'm going to put 25K on there so I can have wideband. Transmit power high, there are reasons that you would make it middle or low. I like to leave it high on my repeater channel so I can really reach out there. Here's where you're going to set the codes for your repeater channels. In this case, in this area, it's always CTCSS. And then the drop-down menu, as you can see, when I saw the drop-down menu in this software before, it actually had the channel codes where you actually had to go into the chart. If I wanted, say, I can't even see it in here, 151.4, I had to go find the channel code for that and put it in. But in this case, all I got to do is click on 151.4 for transmit and receive. You can also do split tones. So I want to go to 151.4, I would choose CTSS on my codes. And the drop-down menu, as you can see, used to be the numbers that Midland have with their other radios. And I saw that on a video before, but in this case, it sounds like they listened to the advice of some of the YouTubers out there and decided not to do that. So here we have it, test 151.4, I save it, okay, boom, there it is. I've got codes in here, and 151.4, test. Now, the other thing we were talking about were split tones. So if you were to go in here and you had a separate tone for encode and decode, then you can do that on here. So it's perfectly capable. So it's a pretty stout little radio in which you can do. Now, if you want to program a second repeater, then you can do that. That was one of the complaints I saw before too, but that there was only one way to set up a channel 22, in this case test. But I can do that if I want. I can take these blank channels here, double click on it. As you can see, the frequency and transmit frequency, there isn't anything in those right now, but I want to set up a second repeater on channel 22, which we see is 462.725. 62.725. The transmit frequency is going to be 5 above that, so 467.725. Let's call this one test 2. We'll give it a space there, 2. So this is my test 2. Right now the channel spacing says it is narrowband, and I want it to be wideband. I want that extra distance, I want that nice clear crisp signal. So I select 25 kilohertz. Say this is a little, we want this to be a little different than our other one. So instead of 151.4, we're going to set a different CTSS code. Let's say 79.7. Our encode, we're going to do the same. Here's where you could have done a split code if you wanted. We don't want to skip it when we're scanning. And I'm going to click on OK. Boom, there you go. And you can set up quite a few extra repeater channels, which is what I've done. Now, this I was just showing you how to modify, quickly each channel. And you can double click on any of these boxes along this channel. It doesn't matter which one you click on to bring up the edit function. I click on there, I click over here. It brings up the same things. So I actually have a file that I did earlier and that I loaded onto my MXT500 earlier today. So I want to show you guys that. And it's real easy. You do all of this just sitting here. I was in mygmrs.com and got all of the permissions. If you go in there, you can find the repeaters in your area, and you can also find the emails so that you can ask permission to use the repeaters. Usually it'll tell you it's open if it's open to the public. If not, then you got to get permission. Make sure you just follow the rules. Be nice, and that's the whole thing. Just keep being nice with GMRS. I know in the CB radios sometimes it can get a little nasty on there, so we want to keep it nice on GMRS and ask that permission. You can see I programmed 5 other repeaters that were the same channels as some of these down here. 462.725, which is channel 22, is Warrenton, but it's also Blue Mountain West. So I set that up so that I can hit either of those repeaters. They may have different codes, CTCSS codes, and so that's how you would program your different repeaters. That was one of the complaints I heard, is that it didn't do that, but it actually does. And I learned through this process that the MXT400 has software like this as well. It's a little different, and I'm going to cover that later. It's the MXT400. You can see it has different functions in the software, but I just learned about this week, and I programmed my 400s, and we'll cover that in a different video. But right now we're looking at the 500. There it is programmed. So I did all of my homework. I set up all the channels. Now I just want to write it to the radio. I have my handy dandy USB-C cable plugged from the computer, and I didn't need to load any drivers or anything to make this work. It just worked right out of the box. Download this to a Windows machine. I guess it doesn't work with Apple right now. Now when you plug it in, it should work right out of the gate, but I had a COM port problem earlier, so I just go to set COM, and make sure that this is connected, COM 3. It's emulating a COM port. I come from old school days of real COM ports, but there it is. So if you're having a problem and it says can't find the COM, just go to set COM port, see what it's doing. But other than that, when I first used it, right out of the gate, worked fantastic. So I'm going to say write to radio. Do you wish to write data to radio? Write data to radio. Do you wish to continue? I'm going to say okay. Now, if you look, it says clone, and it's copying the software right here, right onto the radio. It's showing the percentage up here on the screen, as well as on the screen here. And it doesn't take very long. All that information that I programmed in is going right into the radio. So there's a lot of things you can set up. Write data completed, and there it is. You can even set the color. Now, going back to the software, let me stretch this over so you can see the window there. Function setup. The starting display. If I wanted to change that, instead of saying welcome when we turned it on, then it would say something else. Also channel names or channel, you can set that there. Squelch level. This is where you can also set the brightness on it. Timeout timer, 3 minutes. Auto power off, I have it set for 60 minutes. Mute is off. Display color, here's yellow. Remember we had it on blue when I did this earlier. I set it to yellow, but let's go ahead and change that. We'll say OK, and say that's the only thing I wanted to change about the setup of the radio. I can still do write to radio. There, it's cloning, and when this finishes, the screen should turn to blue because I changed it in the function setup menu. Please do that. You can see completion percentage 60-some%, as reflected on this screen as well. When it's done, it'll do like a little quick reset. Boom, now it's blue. It's got all my channel names on there. Let me go ahead and set the screen back to something we can see a little better. There, we can see that. When I turn it down, you see a little better on the camera, so we'll go with that. Now, another function that we use today here in Virginia, we have bad weather on the way. So I was just in here messing around with the computer and the radio, just renovating my office so we can do videos like this, and the weather's coming in. So I forget how many channels. There's like eight weather channels on there, I believe. 10 weather channels.
Ice accumulation weather and 1/4 of an inch. Low in the upper 20.
Another function, and I don't believe I have that on my 400, but I do like that function on this. If you want to monitor, if you want to turn the squelch off when you're on a channel, like Patty has a 15-watt radio in hers, and sometimes she gets a little far away from the repeater. Can be a little difficult to hear because it's breaking in and out of squelch. I could just hit the monitor button on the front of the radio panel here, and it'll disable squelch so that you can just listen to that channel without having to worry about squelch cutting off your signal. The scan button, that's what I always use if I'm just driving down the road and I'm not trying to talk to anybody. You can hit scan, and it'll go all through the channels. You can see while it's scanning through the channels that I have given names to, it actually goes through those. Now this is the point in the software, if I were to double click on a channel, scan skip will skip that function. So I could, if I don't want it to look at the repeaters when it's doing scanning, I just want to scan the regular simplex channels, I could just take and turn off, I could put or enable scan skip on my repeater channels, and I wouldn't have to do that. So that pretty much wraps up my review of the MXT500 GMRS. I'll go over the other radios that I have, but this thing, I was very excited about it, and I'm not disappointed. Like I say, some of the things I heard that were not loved about it, then Midland apparently listened to the reviewers that got that early look, and they made changes. So kudos to Midland for doing that. And I mean, a lot of good features in this. It's also, if you have a Jeep, this is the one you want. Not only because it's 50 watts and can really reach out there, but because it is, I forget what the function is, like I-something 66, but it's fairly weatherproof. It can be in the rain and it should be fine. So I'm not going to test that. So if you guys out there, if somebody has had their 500 rained on and it's fine, let me know, because like I say, I'm not going to be testing that. I'm going to put it in the Hummer and it's going to stay high and dry unless I run through a creek and flood out the truck, which I don't want to do that either. So I hope this was helpful on how to program it and the features, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you do, like and subscribe. Right now this is going to be on my Being Tim Campbell channel. Probably make another channel just for the GMRS stuff. So if you like it, like and subscribe to Being Tim Campbell, and you'll see some other just crazy videos. But for now, this is my first GMRS video, and hopefully we'll have many more in the future. And I hope to see you there.